wild pigs are also out of control much closer in.
Imagine it's the middle of the night in the Texas brush country. There's a hunt going on, and it's not just for sport, it's a massive effort to deal with a pig problem that has spiraled out of control. Now, you might wonder why people in places like Minnesota should care, but the truth is these wild pigs are spreading fast, even pushing down from Canada. For years, state-funded teams in Texas have been filming their eradication efforts. We're talking about gunners in helicopters, high-tech drone surveillance, and thermal imaging that sweeps across thousands of acres of land. This footage was originally meant just for internal use, tracking populations and collecting data. But when researchers at Texas A&M actually sat down to analyze these recordings, they found something that made them stop in their tracks. It wasn't just more of the same, it was evidence that changed everything we thought we knew about this 500-year-old invasion. The cameras didn't just show animals being killed. They showed an enemy that is adapting to us way faster than anyone ever imagined. A landscape under siege. When you look at the drone footage flying over Texas farmland today, it honestly looks like a war zone. You see these massive craters pockmarking fields that were perfectly green only a few days prior. Irrigation lines are ripped to shreds, and entire pastures have been churned into nothing but mud. This is the handiwork of roughly 2.6 million feral hogs. The project's footage reveals a terrifying reality. These hogs have conquered 99% of the state. Only El Paso County hasn't been hit yet, but that's probably just a matter of time. The financial impact is just as staggering. In Texas alone, these animals cause $52 million in agricultural damage every single year. On a national level, that number jumps to $1.5 billion. We are seeing individual farmers reporting losses of $200,000 in a single year, enough to make family farms that have survived for generations finally go under. People are warned to look at Texas as a cautionary tale because of the catastrophic damage, the diseases they carry, and the genuine threat to public safety. But as bad as the money side is, that's not what shocked the researchers the most. The thermal revelation. The elimination teams use military-grade thermal cameras that basically turn the night into day. They show every single living thing in the brush as a glowing white shape. For a long time, the plan was simple. Fly the helicopters low, flush the pigs out, and take them out. The gunners have done this thousands of times. However, the footage from the last 2 years shows a disturbing change in behavior. Thermal sweeps that used to find groups of 20 or 30 hogs are now coming up empty in areas where the population is actually higher than ever. The hogs haven't left, they've just learned. They now recognize the specific sound of a helicopter. Veteran hunters notice that as soon as a chopper enters a certain territory, the thermal signatures on the ground don't just scatter in a blind panic. Instead, they move in coordinated patterns, executing an organized retreat into thick terrain where the helicopters can't follow. It's been described as watching a literal army perform a tactical withdrawal. The sentry behavior. This is where the footage gets even more unsettling. Trapping has always been the main way to control these animals. You build a corral, bait it with corn, and wait for the group to get comfortable before dropping the gate remotely with an iPhone. It used to be very effective, but the project's cameras have now captured what experts call sentry behavior. They've filmed older females standing guard outside the trap perimeters. They don't eat, and they don't go inside. They just watch. In one specific clip, a dominant sow circled a trap for 6 nights in a row. She never went in, and because of her, her entire group of 23 animals stayed out too. On the 7th night, the whole group just vanished from the area. The trap was never tripped, and the bait just sat there and rotted. These aren't just instincts, it's learned behavior that's being passed down. The dumb pigs were caught years ago. The ones left are something entirely different. The biological threat and the hybrid nightmare. The elimination footage captures the obvious stuff, the rooted fields and shredded landscapes, but it's the water quality testing done alongside these efforts that really has state officials sounding the alarm. In areas where hog activity is concentrated, bacteria levels in the water are spiking to 40 times above what's considered safe. Think about that for a second. These animals are wallowing in water sources, leaving waste in streams, and turning once clean creeks into genuine biological hazards. When you look at the footage of these hog wallows, it looks like something out of the Middle Ages. churned up mud and contamination flowing straight downstream toward farms, ranches, and small communities that have no idea what's heading their way. The silent killers. And it's not just the water. These animals are literal reservoirs for disease. They carry swine brucellosis, which can infect any hunter who handles a carcass without serious protection. The symptoms can stick with you for years, and in the worst cases, it can actually be fatal. They also carry pseudorabies and tuberculosis. But the big shadow hanging over everything is African swine fever. It hasn't officially hit U.S. soil yet, but if it ever makes it into the feral hog population, experts believe it could completely collapse the entire domestic pork industry. These elimination teams aren't just out there hunting pests anymore. They are on the front lines trying to contain a massive biological threat. Beyond the water and the pathogens, the footage reveals a silent ecological wipeout that rarely makes the evening news. Feral hogs are essentially ecosystem engineers, but in the worst way possible. They are documented destroying the nesting sites of ground-dwelling birds and competing directly with native white-tailed deer for food. In some of the most disturbing night vision clips, we see large boars actually preying on fawns and small livestock. They've shifted from being simple foragers to opportunistic predators, and the local wildlife simply hasn't evolved to handle a 400-pound tank with tusks. Adding to this nightmare is the Texas property problem. You see, 95% of Texas is privately owned. The elimination project hits a brick wall because hogs don't care about fences, but state laws do. If a government team clears one ranch, but the neighbor next door wants to keep the hogs for high-dollar hunting clients, that neighbor's land becomes a sanctuary. The footage shows hogs literally commuting. They hide in the unhunted private thickets during the day and move into the agricultural war zones at night to feed. It creates a whack-a-mole scenario where we can never achieve a 100% sweep because there's always a safe haven just over the fence line. This conflict between public safety and private profit is exactly why the 70% kill rate goal is almost impossible to hit. A 500-year genetic mistake. To understand how we got here, you have to look back at the history shown in the project's research. It started back in 1493 when Christopher Columbus brought pigs to the West Indies as a food supply. Some escaped and did exactly what pigs do: they thrived. By the 1500s, Spanish hogs had made it to Texas. They were tough and fast, but the real disaster happened in the 1930s. That's when ranchers started importing Eurasian wild boars for sport hunting. These were aggressive, highly intelligent animals from Europe and Asia, and the fences didn't hold them. When those boars started breeding with the feral Spanish hogs, they created a hybrid nightmare. The elimination footage shows the result of 90 years of this genetic experiment. We now have animals weighing 400 pounds with 3-inch tusks and shoulder shields made of cartilage so thick they can literally stop small-caliber bullets. The arrival of the super pigs. And now there's a new threat moving down from the north: the Canadian super pigs. These are hybrids specifically bred to survive the freezing cold. They have thicker fur, larger bodies, and survival instincts that make them incredibly hard to get rid of. Some of them top 600 pounds. Researchers monitoring the Texas project are terrified of what happens if these northern hybrids merge with the Texas populations. If that happens, you'll have an animal that can survive absolutely anywhere on the continent: heat, cold, desert, or wetland. Nothing would be able to stop them. Let's dive deeper into the super hybrid threat, because this is the math that keeps biologists awake at night. The Canadian super pigs have mastered the snow fort technique, burrowing deep into the snow to stay warm in -40-degree weather. Now, imagine those genes hitting the Texas border. If we combine the Canadian ability to survive a frozen tundra with the Texas hog's ability to thrive in a 110-degree desert, we aren't just looking at a regional pest. We are looking at a universal invader. Biologists warn that this genetic merger would essentially remove the last natural geographic barriers keeping the hog population in check. Currently, extreme cold or extreme heat kills off a small percentage of the weak, but a super hybrid wouldn't care about the weather. It would turn the entire North American continent into one giant, buffet-style habitat. The footage from the north shows these hybrids reaching sizes that defy logic. Some look more like small grizzly bears than pigs. If that massive frame and cold weather fur meet the aggression and disease resistance of the southern boar, we are looking at an apex invader that no state or provincial budget could ever hope to fully suppress. the math that keeps researchers awake. There is a brutal mathematical reality that the elimination footage forces everyone to face. A single female hog reaches breeding age at just 6 months old. She can have 2 litters every year, with anywhere from 6 to 12 piglets in each. Those piglets then mature in another 6 months and start the whole cycle over again. Biologists have crunched the numbers, and the result is terrifying. To just stabilize the population, not even to reduce it, but just to keep it from growing, you have to kill 70% of the hogs in an area every single year. 7 out of 10 every year, forever. If you drop below that 70% threshold for even one single season, the population rebounds completely within 24 months. Right now, Texas harvests around 750,000 hogs a year. That sounds like a huge number, but the population grows by about 30% annually when left alone. The truth is, these elimination efforts aren't winning. They're just barely holding the line. While the footage shows success in small, isolated areas where a few counties hit zero, it requires a level of coordination that is almost impossible to maintain. Every single landowner across thousands of acres has to work together at the exact same time. If one rancher traps hard but his neighbor does nothing, the hogs just move next door and wait to return. It's like squeezing a balloon. You push in one spot, and it just bulges out in another. The uncomfortable economics. The footage also raises a question that nobody wants to talk about out loud. Hog hunting is a multi-million-dollar industry. There are wealthy clients flying in from all over the world to pay for the helicopter experience, using thermal scopes and specialized rifles while staying in high-end lodges. This brings in serious money. If Texas actually succeeded in wiping out the hogs, that entire economy would vanish overnight. Some landowners have even noticed something suspicious. Counties that used to be clear suddenly have new infestations appearing hundreds of miles away from the nearest known group. Hogs are fast, but they don't teleport. When they show up in impossible locations, people start asking if someone gave them a ride to start a new hunting business. Relocating them is illegal because it spreads the invasion, but it's almost impossible to enforce across millions of acres of private land. The reality revealed by the elimination footage is hard to swallow. This isn't a problem that has a final solution. It's a permanent condition that has to be managed forever. You can't undo a 500-year-old mistake. You can only try to contain it at a massive cost. Texas is spending $500 million a year on control efforts, traps, ammo, helicopters, and staff. That cost is never going to go down. It's probably only going to go up. The cameras show what happens the moment you stop the pressure. A cleared area that isn't monitored for just one season gets repopulated instantly. The footage, when sped up, shows empty land filling back up with thermal signatures like a wound getting infected. The hogs aren't just surviving, they're learning from us, producing babies that are smarter, harder to find, and harder to kill. When researchers finally released some of these clips, they thought people would focus on the action, the helicopters, and the high-tech gear. Instead, people were disturbed by the intelligence they saw. They saw 400-pound boars that didn't panic when a thermal spotlight hit them. Instead, they moved deliberately toward cover, using the terrain to block the line of fire. They saw groups that got scattered by a helicopter regrouping at a specific rally point 2 miles away within 90 minutes, as if they had practiced the maneuver. These aren't random animals. They are adapting to human pressure in real time. The elimination project was supposed to show a problem being solved. Instead, it showed an enemy that is evolving, an enemy that learns, and a mathematical certainty that this war will never truly end. The most horrifying part of the footage wasn't the violence, it was the evidence that, despite the millions of dollars in the military-grade tech, the hogs might actually be winning. We are watching the results of a 500-year experiment in accidental evolution, and right now, the hog is proving to be the ultimate survivor. This brings us to a final major point. Given how severe this crisis is and how much damage it's causing, what do you think is the real reason the government still blocks the commercial sale of wild hog meat? Does it come down to those health risks we talked about, or is there something else going on in the background? We want to hear what you think, so drop your answer in the comments below. If you found this, look into the Texas Hog War eye-opening. Make sure to hit that like button and subscribe right now. Our next video is going to uncover something about this invasion that even the researchers weren't prepared for. You won't want to miss it. Thanks for watching this video.